Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TC Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, we're going into episode 2 of our Katsu matchup guide. We're going to be talking about Icelander, some of the different Icelander types of Icelander builds you can play, and just talk about tips and tricks for the matchup that hopefully will help shore it up for you a little bit at all levels. If you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Feel free to check out my other videos. I do Flesh and Blood videos as well as Alpha Clash. If you're a long-standing supporter, thank you so much as always. Feel free to check out the Patreon and the Discord down below. So I did Iyslander yesterday. I wanted to do Icelander today. I think that Icelander is typically not a favored matchup, regardless of what type of Icelander it is. And it's a matchup that, honestly, sometimes you just have to be okay with it not being the greatest matchup. However, I want to give some ideas that I think will help you, A, have a better chance of winning, but B, not feel as frustrated, like not feel like you have more agency in the turns and things that you can look out for. Because the thing with Icelander is you can't really... You can with the Findle's Fight and Spirit build, like the Bullender list, but with arcane lists, strict arcane lists, like on hit effects list, you can't really plan for what they have in Arsenal as much. It's really hard to tell what they're doing. So you have to almost hedge your bets a little bit with some of your play lines and really go through things to try to give yourself the best chance to have a good turn. So we're going to talk about those. So before we get into it, there's two types of Icelanders. There is a taxing build and a non-taxing build is what I call it. So the taxing build, first off, both builds normally have Blizzard and Channel Lake Frigid. That's pretty standard. It's what they focus on with the taxing build versus the non-taxing build, or the arcane build versus the Bullander build, that really kind of make their difference. The taxing build really focuses on utilizing Ether Ice Veins very well, cards like Brain Freeze, Encase, stuff like that, where they're really trying to stop you from having a turn while dealing medium level damage and then eventually just blow you out at the end once they've taken tempo. Whereas the Bullander list, and we'll talk about that in a second, is really just going for the value game. Yes, they still use stuff like Ether Ice Vein, especially at red and yellow, but really they're looking to tax you a little bit, chip in damage, hit you with a good value Bullander turn, chip in damage, tax you. Like it's kind of like a give and take a little bit. Regardless, some of the key cards for both of them are channel against you specifically as a Katsu are Channel Lake Frigid and Blizzard. Both of these cards, if they hit them at good times, it just makes the matchup that much worse, and you kind of just have to, take your licks when you get them and go from there. Channel Lake Frigid is probably the worst one. It's even worse than Blizzard because you can't really play around it. When they play it, especially if they play it on your turn. If they get it's similar to the Azalea matchup. I play Azalea a lot. If they get their Channel Lake Frigid out early and often, and they get several of them, you're kind of just like, all right, well, just gonna sit here and have a terrible day. But I'll give you a little bit of a tip on Channel Lake Frigid, at least to maybe help a little bit. Blizzard is the other one. Blizzard's really, really harsh on Katsu. You have to really almost play every single turn as if they have a Blizzard. Sometimes you can't play around it and you just got to go for it and hope to God you can pay through things. But really, on a normal Katsu turn, you always have to think of what happens if they have Blizzard. How do I play around it? And it's just really hard to think about. Ether Ice Veins, one we'll talk about as well here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the key cards for both Icelander lists and then talk about from what I've seen what Icelanders don't like to do against you and then kind of give you tips and we'll go through a hand. So this is the taxing key cards. The non-taxing key cards, they don't really put in command and conquer against you, although they might, but really they focus on Wounded Bull and Findle's Fight and Spirit, and then they use cantrip ice cards really outside of Blizzard and Channel to cycle and have good block value. So using things like Cold Snap, Polar Blast, these cards where they can give you a Frostbite, activate Waning Moon, and replace the card that they played with Cold Snap or Polar Blast. And then there's really looking for the value game, block with 2 cards, attack with 2 cards, arsenal card, things of that nature, right? So as a Katsu, I would rather see a Bullander list over a straight arcane list. Most Icelanders that I'm seeing are running Bullander. On hit effect, she is really kind of coined the arcane list. The arcane list and keeping it prominent. She calls it the boomer Icelander list, and she does really well with it. And honestly, if I'm playing an arcane list, it's so much worse. But both lists you're actually slightly unfavored into. The hard thing with Icelander is, and this isn't a hit on Icelanders, is your Talishar Icelander is not the Icelander you're going to be playing at a big event. not always, right? Icelander is a hero that takes so much work to get good at, so you don't know what level of Icelander you're playing, and sometimes that can affect your opinion of it overall. So that's kind of the two non-taxing list. Kind of bringing up the hand example. I'm going to give you 6 tips here, and they range from different things. Hopefully they will help you a little bit. The first one is Art of War. I do not play Art of War, so I don't have to worry about this. And this is just my opinion. If you disagree with it, completely fine. I would sub out Art of War against Icelander. There are certain interactions Icelander can do with Blizzard and Channel Lake Frigid that will completely stop an Art of War, and they'll wait until you Art of War to do it. Especially if you held cards your last hand, you have a 5-card hand. Unless you have a 5-card hand on Tunic, Art of War is very risky to play. Let's say you have a 4-card hand, no Tunic, and you have a blue. Let's say a blue, 100 wins, Art of War, and another card. And you're not close to Tunics, you're not going to arsenal that Art of War. If you 100 wins first, and your goal is you want to Art of War in the reaction step or on the before that, and then give it a +1, banish, draw 2, have 2 floating, the works, right? You just now, so your goal is to have 2 cards left in hand with 2 resources floating. You're hitting for a 4-power 100 wins, and maybe you can go off to the races a little bit and deal some good damage. They can respond to your Art of War with Blizzard. And in that situation where you just pitched a card to play Art of War, you have 1 card left in hand, and you have 100 wins on the stack. You now have to first pay to give 100 for 100 wins to still have go again. So that takes all the resources out of your blue, and then you have to then discard that card and draw 2. But you also have to pay into the Frostbite, right? Like there's so many, and then you basically are left with 1 card. Potentially, maybe less, depending if you draw 2 reds, and your turn's over, right? They can completely blow you out with a single Blizzard. They can stop your entire hand. And then what they'll do is they'll block that. Sometimes they'll even just block that 100 wins with a Sink Below, and boom, they just used a card from Arsenal and a D-React, and they kept, 3 cards in hand, and your turn is over. And you dealt 0 damage and wasted a power card. I wouldn't run Art of War into Icelander. If she does the same thing with Channel, if she responds to your Art of War at instant speed with a Channel Lake Frigid, completely stunts your whole turn. There's no way you're getting a good turn with that Art of War. It's just too risky. It's too risky. Even a single Frostbite, if you're not pitching an entire blue for that Art of War, can tax your hand, right? So that's just my opinion. If you want to still run Art of War, maybe there's Katsu's out there that disagree. Maybe they've had success with Art of War against Icelander. Just too risky for me. So that one. The second one is always play around Blizzard. Now, I'm not saying play timid and don't push for damage. You do have to push for damage. But for me, I don't typically like to use Kodachis against Icelander. Before the Amulet of Ice ban and the Hypothermia ban, I really said almost never use your Kodachis. But with Icelander in general, the 1 damage she really doesn't care about. Icelander wants to block, right? It's similar to Uziri. So doing the Kodachi game plan doesn't really do much. She's just going to wait until your second Kodachi to tax you or just block your regular card, and along with taxing you. So you want to present damage early in the chain for 2 reasons. One, to help play around Blizzard, because if you use 1 damage for 1 resource, that's good for the Icelander, because then they can just Blizzard you after your second freaking Kodachi. You have 1 floating. Now you have to pitch another card in to give that Kodachi go again, and you have to pay for the Frostbite. It just gets really bad. The second reason is one of the hardest things, at least from someone who's not an Icelander player, of playing Icelander is the knowing what to arsenal and what not to arsenal, when to play things, when not to play things, what's the value, how many cards I'm going to have left to block with, is this enough taxation to worth, blocking and things. I was watching Majin-Bei's, one of the better Icelanders in the world, watching his video on his deck tech, and he was talking about how he doesn't like to arsenal. Typically, it seems like, or it's not his favorite arsenal target, like an Ice Bolt or something like that, because it's gonna, unless he's on Tunic, it's gonna cost him 2 cards to just hit you for 3 and give you a Frostbite and Waning Moon to hit you for 5 and a Frostbite. But now he just took out 2 cards and plus his arsenal, and that's really a lot of tax for them for not a lot of damage. When you're as a Katsu, if you push through that 1 Frostbite, now you're off to the races. You possibly can deal 15 damage, and he only has 2 cards to block with. So because of that, you want to present that decision point for them as quickly as possible, because you don't know what's in their arsenal. It could be something. It could be a Fendel's Fighting Spirit, and they want to try to hold cards in hand. And if you deal damage early, now they have to decide, okay, am I not going to be able to play that Fendel's next turn or whatever. So I like to present damage early in the chain. It also helps me play around Blizzard, because the worst feeling in the world is using your Kodachis, and then maybe you're trying to go into a Surging Strike or go into something else, even like a one-coster, like a leg tap or Spinning Wheel Kick. And if you think about, if you Kodachi Spinning Wheel Kick, and they give you a Frostbite on your second Kodachi, you now have to pitch another card for that Spinning Wheel Kick. It's just a big feels bad. So present your damage early in the chain, get their mental working right. You have that old cheesy line of, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Create your own luck, right? Prep the right way with your play lines. Force the Icelander to make a mistake. That's one of Katsu's biggest calling cards, is putting the opponent in a situation where they are more prone to make the wrong decision. Do that against Icelander. So always play around Blizzard. Try not to pitch into their turn. That's a really big one. It's similar when I'm playing Azalea. Like when an Icelander taxes me or does damage to me, don't pitch into it. One of the biggest issues I see Katsus make early on when they're still learning the deck is this card right here, Ether Ice Fan at the bottom. An Icelander will play Ether Ice Fan on their turn. They'll fuse it, right? And it's coming, let's say at red, it's coming for 5. What I see Katsus do is they'll pitch a blue. They'll pitch one arcane pitch into it, block one of the arcane, and then pitch the last 2 to pay for Ether Ice Fan's fused effect. That's horrible value. You just got dealt 4 damage for expending one card. They ripped a card from your hand and they still dealt 4 damage to you, right? That's equivalent to like someone hitting you with a 7 dominate attack and you blocking it with a 3 block, right? They dealt 4 damage and they ripped a card from your hand. It's just not good, right? It sucks. It feels really bad. And so just take the damage, discard a card, right? If you have a really bad hand, then sure, maybe do that, but just discard a red, keep your blue so you can pay through their attacks and effects on their turn and continue with your day. Try like heck, unless you absolutely have to, unless you're really trying to preserve life total, to not pitch on their turn. The only time I really will pitch on their turn is if they have multiple Channel Lake Fridges out. You're not going to have a turn next turn. You might as well conserve some life, do whatever. Another reason you don't pitch on their turn is because if they can rip 2 or 3 cards from your hand on your turn, then what Icelander can do is they can literally just arsenal a damage spell. It's a blue. You only have 1 card in hand on your turn. You move to arsenal because you can't do anything, and then they hit you for 7 or 8 damage, and you only can pitch with 1 card. It's just it's basically like 2 free damage turns for them when you try to pitch on their turns. Just don't do it. Like I said before, present damage early in the chain for a couple reasons. One, you want to get them in that mental mindset of like, should I play my arsenal card or not, right? When should I play it? Being able to present damage early in the chain forces that mental leap of them having to figure out when they want to do it early on, and it prevents you from getting blown out on a tax turn, right? The second reason is, especially if you're playing a Bullander list, they like to arsenal their reds. Bullanders will definitely arsenal their reds, right? They'll arsenal a Sink Blow. They'll arsenal a Fendel's Fighting Spirit or a Wounded Bull. It's actually good. They look to do that, right? It's not like their main thing, but they will look to do that. And so because of that, you figure out very quickly when you present damage early if they have something like that in their arsenal. Because if you play a Surging Strike and they block it, and then you play an Overwhelming Gust Wave, like they're probably trying to play keep 1 card for that Fendel's Fighting Spirit, and now you're forcing them like, okay, you're going to keep that red in your deck for in your arsenal for 2 turns. You get a better basically what I'm saying is you get a better idea of what's in their arsenal when you present damage early in the chain, because they now have to make the decision of, do I get it out now or not, right? Also, like even if they have like a okay card or a good card like a Cold Snap or a Polar Blast in Arsenal, where it's a cantrip where they're just like replacing their card, you can push through the Frostbite easier because you probably held your blue and you didn't expend too many resources on Kodachis. And even though they did cycle a card, you're now able to push through it and continue with your turn. So that's another one. Another one is don't force playing around a channel. I know I said this, don't pitch on their turn, but sometimes if they get multiple channels out on multiple turns and you're not going to have a good turn, don't try to play through a channel. Just move to end, right? Like if they play it for whatever reason, play a channel on their turn, and that's all they do. Maybe they Waning Moon you for 2. and then you, on your turn, let's just say for argument's sake, you have 3 reds and a yellow Bonds of Ancestry. Don't pitch into something. Maybe you pitch away 1 red to Kadachi or something just to cycle out your reds if you can, or pitch 2 reds away for something. But try to keep 2 or 3 cards in hand, because the Icelander doesn't know what you have in hand. They might just be thinking you're moving to end because the channel's up and there's nothing you can do about it. But if you have 3 reds in hand, what are you going to do? You're going to expend all your resources for like 1 or 2 damage. Then it's going to hit you anyway. At least give them the mental thought of like, do I go for a couple of damage spells here? Or does he have 2 blues in hand? I'm just going to waste it, right? And let him cycle, whatever it may be. That's just my opinion. Some people might have different opinions on that, but that's how I approach channel. Another one is keep Tunic up as long as humanly possible. Having the threat of Tunic is very, very important. It's able to push through taxing effects, and you want to wait until they're trying to blizzard you or trying to channel you, and maybe you can push through it, and really, be able to use Tunic to the best. Having Tunic up is the best thing against an Icelander, because you can respond to an Icelander trigger or a Frostbite trigger on the stack with Tunic and be able to get that resource to be able to play it, right? Even on like a Cold Snap, if you don't want to use another card to pitch, maybe you did, maybe you Surging Strike and you have a McGinty in hand and you don't want to and they Cold Snap you and you want to keep that 1 resource floating in order to be able to pay for that McGinty, because you're going to go get Whelming or something, whatever it may be. I'm just coming up with a random example. Being able to respond to that Cold Snap with Tunic to go up to 2 resources and pay through the Frostbite with 1 and still have 1 floating, so then you can play McGinty, could be really, really pivotal. Just keep that in mind. And then my final one was the Art of War interaction. Again, just keep that in mind as you're trying to play with Art of War with Icelander. She can really blow out your Art of War turns. So with the hand example here, like this is kind of a weird one. I'm going to be playing the Surging Strike Chainlink 1. Most people probably would anyway, but even not this hand, any hand where you have like a spinning wheel kick or a leg tap if you play it, or even if both of these were 0 cost, like a Be Like Water and 100 Winds, normally someone might want to play like Kadachi 100 Winds or something like that. Maybe you're trying to make them block that second Kadachi. No, an Icelander is just going to tax you on your second Kadachi, and now you got to pay your last resource into that 100 Winds to play it, and then it hurts your ability to do other things, whatever the case may be. You want to play your high damage stuff early to try to force out the Icelander's hand earlier in the turn. That's just kind of how I go about things. Hopefully this helps a little bit. Some of the key things like not pitching on their turn, playing around Blizzard, don't force yourself through a channel. Like if they have the nuts, they have the nuts, right, so to speak. If they have like those crazy high taxing turns with channel and Blizzard back to back to back, you're probably not winning that matchup, right? But it can help you if you present damage early in the chain. If you present them to make a mistake early in the chain, it really actually can help your chances of winning. I've beaten Icelanders. It's not favored by any means if there's a good Icelander, but it's definitely winnable if they make a mistake or if they just draw not the right cards, right? The second you can get them off of Arsenal, if you can, through a high damage turn, you're in really good shape, because that's what they're trying to do against you as much as humanly possible. But yeah, hopefully you like this type of content. Let me know if it made sense. Again, these matchup guides, I'm really trying to do the best I can. I want to give people like, I guess, medium level in-depth matchup suggestions, but not too in-depth. 1, because I'm not good at the super, super in-depth stuff, but 2, because I feel like I just lose people. I'm trying to keep these under 20 minutes. So hopefully this made sense to you. If it did, please like, comment, subscribe. If I said something you don't agree with, or something was confusing, or something just didn't make sense to bring up, let me know. I'm trying to get better at these things. I haven't gotten any comments on the Uziri one yet. Not that I'm like asking for comments, but I would love to know stuff and be able to make these better for you all as much as I can. But yeah. Thank you all so much for joining me. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. If not me, it's totally fine. Go into our Fleshbug career, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff so we can get more people seeing this game. And I'll see y'all next time on TC Talk. Thank you all so much.